Ladies and gentlemen, Addison and Colonos present
ML Elric,
Tracer of Lost Persons, one of the most famous characters of American fiction in one of
podcasting's
most thrilling dramas. Tonight and every
Tuesday,
this same time, the famous old investigator takes from his file and brings to us one of his most celebrated missing persons cases. Tonight's case is entitled The Case of the Two-Faced Murderer.
Get your finger out of my face. It's gone.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Come on.
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now, Al?
Hey, kids. It's your old pal, ML Elric, feeling a little under the weather, and not just because I watched both the Michigan State and the Michigan games this weekend, but because, like many of you out there, I'm dealing with a little respiratory infection. So please, wash your hands, be careful. And Shawn doesn't wash his hands after he goes to the bathroom, so I guess there's no point in telling him, which is why he's quarantining in East Lansing and will join us later this hour with a report from the field after he meets Jonathan Corvallis-Smith, the new head coach at your favorite college football team, the Michigan State Spartans.
John Smith II.
Certainly everybody who comes to play at Spartan Stadium likes Michigan State Spartan football because they usually leave happy, unfortunately. And so Shawn will be joining us later. Special guest today is my wife, Teresa Baldus of the Detroit Free Press, a former Michigan Journalist of the Year who's been covering the Ethan Crumbley case. We are coming up on the 2-year anniversary of that tragedy. And this case is getting so convoluted and so weird that the parents who have stuck together are now splitting, at least in terms of legal strategy, and a lawyer for one of the parents could be going to jail soon. Teresa's going to explain to us all those twists and turns in one of the most complicated cases we've seen in a long time. Marc is here, even though he's also on the DL for a physical ailment that he suffered while blocking for Blake Corum.
Really stupid injury.
Well, you know, you're known for your gracefulness, but mainly on the air, not necessarily
nowhere.
On surfaces.
Nowhere.
So those sturdy calves that Shawn admires so much let you down. That's very unfortunate. And intern Al is here to give us his perspective on the issues of the day, because, you know, we do believe that the children are our future, as long as they don't shoot you. So Al is going to weigh in as well. And a couple things we want to do before we get into it. We want to thank our sponsor, our sole sponsor, Luke Nowacki, who sponsors all the Red Shovel Network shows and Pinnacle Wealth Strategies. We will tell you later on how you can reach out to Luke and how Luke can help you plan for a future that includes security. Certainly more security than you're likely to get if you're just like, I don't know, I think I'll buy some stock in, Company X, because everybody loves Company X, and then you realize Sam Bankman-Friedman, or whatever his name was behind Company X. It's
SBF, yeah.
SBF, not a good move. And I also want to tell you that time is running out for our merchandise sale. The merch store closes on Wednesday, November 29th at 8 p.m., so please get your orders in now. This is some cool merchandise. It's the only time you can get it, and it will get to you in time for the holidays. So forget Black Friday, forget Cyber Monday. Time is running out. Get to the merch store, and you can get a link to that.
It's Giving Tuesday. You can give to us.
Oh yeah, give to us. This is a good way to support the show while getting some cool swag.
Well, we're not a charity, but
well, I mean, you know, people donate to public television so they can get a tote bag.
Is there nothing more American, by the way, than Giving Tuesday coming after the 3 shopping days: Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday?
Yeah, are they trying to cash in on people who feel so guilty about all the shit they bought for themselves when they're supposed to be buying? Is that really how it came about?
Or you figure out what you have left over and you might need to write off.
Oh, okay. Well, yes.
Teresa like that joke. Good.
By all means, assuage your guilt and buy some merchandise and support our show. We are a nonprofit, if that means not profitable. I'm not sure that we have the tax status, but we certainly are falling way short of our revenue goals. So this is one way for you to help us get there, and for what it's worth, to look fantastic as a net result of that. So go to our website, mlsoulofdetroit.com. you'll see a link to the merch store. So check it out, and we do appreciate your support. So it has been a busy week. Good things happening at Michigan State football. Mainly, if there's any doubt about whether we needed to burn it down, that was eliminated when we failed to score a point. In fact, I took my nephew to the game. I took him to the Michigan game and the Penn State game. He has now seen the opponent score 91 unanswered points against the Spartans. So, I'm tempted to say, boy, it was pretty nice to give this guy some free tickets, but I actually feel pretty guilty, like I inflicted some horrible football on him. Maybe I owe him reparations.
How was the experience at Ford Field, though?
Well, unlike most of these November games, it was warm, and that was great. And unlike these November games that don't matter, there was a good turnout from students and alumni, and good crowd, good vibe. Ford Field, which I rarely get to go to, does handle their business really well. Lots of bathrooms, lots of concession stands, lots of ways to get in and out. The security staff and everybody there who is I guess, part of the fan experience team did a really good job. They did hand out towels, but these just said 313, which I thought was cool because last time they handed out a rah-rah towel, we got smoked. And so the towels had more ironic value than actual collectible value. So it was good. The first half was good. The team was encouraging. They really held Penn State in check. But in the second half, it was just a dog pile, which was a complete opposite of what you saw on Saturday at Michigan Stadium.
Oh my God, what a day!
Where Ohio State made two mistakes, missed a field goal, threw an interception.
Soft.
And it was a difference in a game. I mean, you'd be a better judge of this than I, or than me, but I felt like that was one of the more memorable Michigan-Ohio State matchups that we've seen, at least in my time. It was.
Well, I mean, the hype alone, right? Number 2 and number 3. I think 2 years.
And the drama too, right? The cheaters up against the team whose brother may have exposed the cheating. You know?
And when it all boils down to it, and the game actually gets played on the field, you have one team that will take risks because they believe that they can, go for it on 4th and 1 and get a first down, and another team that, settles to try and kick a long field goal before the end of the half. One team can take chances and the other team just won't. That's been the difference in that Michigan-Ohio State series the last 3 years. Michigan tackles and blocks better too.
Okay. It was a difference in that big game in Columbus too, where Harbaugh went for it and didn't get it, although that call's debatable too. Was that DJ Barrett or something?
JT Barrett, when the fourth down play when he didn't get it, but they said that he did, in 2016.
That's the Michigan perspective. But Michigan has been the bolder team. Even Brady Hoke going for 2 when they were going to take him into overtime in Ann Arbor. So I think there's a little bit of that pirate blood in the Wolverines, and
I think
not just because they're lying and cheating and stealing, which is what Pirates and Wolverines do these days. But
I feel like head coaches in general are just conservative by nature. They're very, very conservative. They don't like taking too many risks. I mean, look at James Franklin. He never takes a risk. Right? And then sometimes you need to trust your guys and go for it.
He did in Happy Valley. It blew up in his face against the Wolverines, but
no, there was another time. What was it? 4th and 6. I don't know. There's just been bad coaching decisions by him and frankly Ryan Day. And Michigan, even when they go for it and don't get it. Although I will say this, I really wish they would have gone for it when they kicked the second field goal to go up 6 at the end of the game.
Oh yeah.
Was it 4th and 3, 4th and? I think it was about 4th and 3 on their own 17.
I've heard you talk about that in the Drew and Mike show, but
I think they should have gone for it because I'm a big believer in possessions, right? So you're up 1 possession and you kick a field goal, you're still up 1 possession. I'd rather go for it. You get a first down, game over. You're controlling the game.
The problem with possessions is sometimes the kid's head spins around, they puke all over your priest, and then they piss on the living room carpet and insult astronauts. So you got to be careful with all possessions are not the same.
It was a very happy day. And then got home, and I hurt my knee earlier in the day, and it progressively got worse. And I realized, wow, adrenaline and booze can mask a lot of physical pain throughout the day.
So you went to Schembechler Hall. You fell on your knees and praised the coach,
Hilarious.
and somehow injured your patella. That's what I heard?
No, and one of the things I don't like I love Michigan Stadium, right? That for me, right? A lot of good times there. The one thing I don't like about it is the setup. There's just not much space around it, right? It's right on Stadium. It's right on Main Street. And part of that problem is the gates are really close to the road. And now that they have extra security, because we got to pretend that everything's super safe, the gate's even further back. So you have this mob of people trying to go in. So you're kind of following the mob. You're all cattle trying to get inside. And we're in the middle of this mob. And as you get closer and closer, you realize, okay, you're on the street. Here comes the curb. There's curb there. And they have those giant cement barriers to stop, trucks from running in, terrorist attacks or whatever.
Because everybody's against you.
Exactly. The world. Everybody. Yeah. It's us versus the world.
It's pretty lonely.
But at that point, when you're up at it, you only have one option. It's to go over the barrier, which everybody had to do. I mean, really old people, really, really fat people way bigger than me, climbing over this thing. So it's my turn. And I jumped up and I'm, put my left foot up, left-handed. My foot slides in between the barriers as my right foot comes down and totally twisted my leg. It sucks. And so my brother goes, oh, yeah, that didn't look like you're supposed to bend that way. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't hear anything, and it doesn't feel that bad. And I kind of, just went into the game, and Will Johnson makes an interception. I'm jumping up and down like a fool, so I guess I was okay. But, oh, my God, by the middle of the night, I couldn't sleep. I can't move my legs still. It's all swollen now. The good news is I had x-rays, and they're negative. But I have to wear
soft
stupid
tissue
brace.
doesn't show up in x-rays, so you could have some serious
what
damage.
A downer you
Sorry.
are, man.
Well, why don't you just go through the barrier like Blake Corum and then hand out a turkey?
I should have. Yeah, I should have. So, but I would gladly take that injury because it was still a very fun day.
Well, you left it all out on the field for the team, and that's what's important. Yeah.
Well, about a month ago, I was talking about Michigan football to Brandon. I said, I really wish I was Zach Zinter. I mean, that guy's got everything going on. He's a beast. He's going to play in the NFL. Super smart kid. And then what did he do? He broke his left leg in half, pretty much. It was a nasty injury.
Oh, thank God they got him
now
out of
my
the
left
game.
leg
He was
hurts.
holding them back. They turned the game around when they got that scrub off the field.
Oh, man.
I gotta,
Poor
so
kid.
you've played the game.
Yeah.
I have. Well, I don't want to say I haven't played the game. I happen to be a very, very successful and accomplished
Hockey player.
No. I'm a terrible hockey player. But in the Chicago Sport and Social co-ed touch football league, I was a very successful quarterback, and I would have been more successful if some of those girls weren't so tough. But Teresa saw the games. She knows what a warrior looks like. But when Zinter was leaving the field, he obviously suffered a grievous and incredibly painful injury. He looked like he wasn't hurting at all. Is that adrenaline? Do they just blow some morphine into him right away? I think
it's adrenaline, and I think once it's set, you kind of. I mean, you've hurt bones. I mean, that was a break too, and who knows how clean of a break it was. It was is the two bones in your leg. What is it? The tibia and the fibula.
I guess so.
The big bone from your knee to your ankle, and then the one that supports it. Yeah, it was an ugly injury, and his foot was pointing the wrong way. They didn't show that on the TV. It was nasty.
Well, he looked so calm. I was almost like, get off the field already. Come on, you're holding up the game.
Oh, he was not terribly calm. And I will say this about Ryan Day. Did you know this part about Ryan Day? That he came over and talked to his family?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so his parents came down on, obviously their kid's hurt. He's getting carted off, and they came down, and Ryan Day actually followed him in the tunnel and said something to him. I assume it was something nice.
Well, I mean,
I don't think he's rubbing into the injury, but it's nice to see that because he's been such a baby about other things.
And Harbaugh didn't say anything to him on the field. He didn't even go up to him. I mean, outrageous.
He went to the hospital.
Coach. Oh, did he go to the hospital?
Yeah, he wasn't allowed in the stadium all day.
Oh, is that what it was? Oh, I thought he was afraid of going in the tunnel. That's okay. That's all right. He's all right. He's going to be fine. He'll be back there for the Big Ten championship game against
Iowa, yeah.
Little Mary's Sisters of the Poor or whoever.
They're 10-2. What are you talking about?
10-2 was also the score of their last game. So this reminds me of the Big Ten championship a couple years ago where Michigan, once they scored a field goal, it was over because Iowa has no offense, even when they import their offense from Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
Both of the guys who went from the Wolverines to the Hawkeyes are both out.
Nasty injuries for both of them, yeah.
Yeah, pretty
Eric
bad
Hall
stuff.
And, yeah,
So
McNamara.
Mark is
We'll see.
Mark is playing hurt. That's
So did you realize now that the Connor Stalions stuff is all bullshit?
Oh no! If it hadn't been for Connor Stalions, that game would have been a blowout.
Yeah,
for
right.
Ohio State, Michigan got just enough information to keep it close.
What a huge advantage he was, huh?
Well, they changed all their signs since he left. So, did he and Harbaugh watch the game together? By the way,
I don't know. I wish they would have put him on the scoreboard like during the intro video. Just inserted him in there.
yeah, because nothing ever goes wrong when you put a villain on the scoreboard. That's one of the things
Yeah,
we learned in
in
East
East
Lansing.
Lansing.
Yeah, that was great. But yeah,
They won't dare speak his name until the NCAA is done with their investigation.
in what 2073 or something.
Hopefully, yeah.
It's going to be beautiful. Well, maybe all those wins will be
We'll
vacated.
see.
We'll
I'm
see.
going to Indianapolis, so I'll give you a full report.
Oh, you are? Okay. Well, I used to make jokes about Wolverines not knowing how to get to Indianapolis, but now you guys, it's actually in your favorites on your destination list, which is very disappointing. And
Sports is a weird thing that way, isn't it?
well, pendulums tend to swing, and they swing hard, so we'll see. We have a new coach in East Lansing. Shawn is probably, as we speak, asking him a question like, obviously, as a great coach, coming to a great program, you must feel very good about what's going to happen here. Tell us how your genius is going to help turn around this wonderful school. Shawn, I didn't know you're throwing hard balls. What are you doing here, man? I just got to town. Can you take a little easy on me? But
It'll be a question about food.
yeah, exactly. Peanut barrel or crunchies for hamburgers. You probably don't use that ground round like ML does. You're eating that processed chicken.
Are you happy with the hire? Are you happy with
I'm delighted with the hire for a couple reasons. Maybe it's going to turn out to be 5 by the time I get to the end of it. But
Oh boy, I'm sorry I asked the question already.
first of all, for people who thought that this job was not desirable, this was one of the most sought-after coaches in all of college football, so they showed they were able to pull a quality coach to a program that people think is going nowhere. So that's number one. Now, when we find out they paid him $15 million a year, that may explain why he left a good situation for a complete dumpster fire. The other reason why is because he has a history of building a program up from very little, which is what he's going to start with in East Lansing. The other reason why, and I know my Spartan friends are going to be upset hearing this, but he's been with Little Brother before. Oregon State is no question the smaller sibling to Oregon out west, and he's been able to compete and build a program in the shadow of one of the most glamorous, well-funded, iconic programs in all of America. So he knows how to work in that environment where guys like Nick Saban got freaked out by having to fight against Michigan for recruits and things like that. And the other thing is, he seems like a guy who is fairly straightforward. The whole time that it was pretty apparent that he was being courted, he never pulled the bullshit of, I'm here until I'm gone. This is the only job I've ever wanted. I'm a Beaver for life. None of that stuff that coaches typically play. So he didn't come in here with a lie on his lips. And he was going into a big rivalry game with a program that's trying to build momentum going into the postseason. And he was straight with everybody. I mean, as straight as you can be without saying, I'm talking to Michigan State, I'm probably going to accept an offer after the game. And I really respect that. I think that's important. I think integrity matters. I think it counts. And he's come in here without one big strike on him, which is, I'll say what I have to say to suit my own needs. And that means a lot to me. I really think that's important. So I'm encouraged. But he doesn't know anybody in the Midwest. And that's going to be a problem. People are already getting ready to leave the program because they don't know him and they're concerned. But I think it's a good choice. I think the home run choice.
Have you seen him coach? Have you seen Oregon State play at all this year?
No, but from what I've heard, they play the kind of football that you can win with.
Yeah, well, they play Big Ten type football.
Yeah,
they're not the
pro
flashy
style.
throwing it all over. Yeah,
right, and that's what has brought great quarterbacks to Michigan State. And we've had some great running backs, so I'm encouraged by that. But I thought the guy I wanted was the coach in Toledo. I think that
Okay.
he's put together a successful program, obviously recruiting in the Midwest, winning without a ton of talent, beating the competition. And I thought that could be a potential home run hire, but it's also high risk. And with Smith, I think you get what you get. This is when I see somebody hiring somebody like Smith, I see somebody hiring a Lloyd Carr as opposed to a Rich Rod. And I'm one of the people who thinks that Lloyd Carr was a great coach and that Michigan fans who got sick of him found out really quickly why they should have been more grateful than they were. And I think...
No, I mean, he left when he left, right?
No, but I mean, there were lots of people like, Lloyd. And it's
sure.
like, I don't know how you feel that way about a guy that just wins. So no, I think it's a good hire. And I know a lot of my Spartan friends are very excited about it. And I think it sends a powerful message that this guy came to a program that he sees a lot of potential in. That's encouraging for those of us who have...
This is a long way to just say yes.
Yeah, I told you it might be more than 2. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
The other thing is people wanted that Mike Elko from
Duke.
From Duke.
Who's now at A&M.
But he's only done 2 seasons, and he had a really good quarterback. When his quarterback went out, so did his program. I think Smith is one with different quarterbacks, just like Kalen DeBoer in Wisconsin, in Washington. Everybody wants Kalen DeBoer. I'd like to see what Kalen DeBoer could do without Michael Penix, because he had him in Indiana. He's had him in Washington. When you can ride a horse like that,
Kalen DeBoer's pretty
you can go pretty far.
Sure. I mean, no one knows until they get to the new place. There's so many variables.
Right. No,
That being said, I do think Smith's better than Elko.
Yes. And that should have been my answer to your question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. Next.
So Teresa's waiting patiently or shopping on Facebook
I know, she's
Marketplace.
been on her phone a lot.
We're not really sure. But she wanted to join us and with visual, even though we don't have video until we get our Patreon situation straightened out. Al has got some exciting plans for us, so maybe he'll talk to us about that before we go. But Teresa has been breaking stories almost from the beginning on the Ethan Crumbley situation. Of course, Ethan Crumbley was the high school kid in Oxford, Michigan, who shot a bunch of his classmates, teachers, staff, fatally, has admitted to it and is just awaiting sentencing. But his parents are still in jail for their role in this, or at least what the prosecutor says is their culpability in an unprecedented case where parents may be held responsible for the actions of their child in a mass shooting. And this case just keeps getting crazier. So, Teresa, tell us what some of the latest developments are, because you've been breaking some big stories on this. And every time I see one of these headlines, I'm like, what the hell else could happen here?
Thanks for having me. So the first biggest development that happened is that the parents from the get-go were on the same page on a united front. And they had attorneys who were working from the same law firm. And the prosecution was like, this is a conflict of interest. You shouldn't have these lawyers representing you because, again, conflict of interest. Anyway, long story short, the attorneys are still representing one the mother, one the father, but the attorneys are not with the same law firm. And most recently, a judge granted a request for the parents to have their own trials. So that's the biggest development here, is that the parents will not be tried together. They will each have their own trial, which comes with all kinds of interesting issues because each parent played a different role in the upbringing of this kid, what they knew about the gun, were they both on board about buying him the gun. As everyone may know, the parents are being charged with involuntary manslaughter for buying the kid the gun that he used in the shooting. Prosecutors have long argued that the parents ignored a troubled child who was spiraling out of control, and instead of getting him help, they bought him a gun, the same one he used in the shooting. And the other part, the reason they're charged, is because they never told the school about that gun when they had the opportunity to do so, which, as we know, on the morning of the shooting, the parents were called into the school about a note he put on his math homework sheet. He had drawn a gun, a bleeding body, and the words, "The thoughts won't help, stop me." Parents left him at school that day. The counselors let him go back to class. 2 hours later, comes out of a bathroom and opened fire, killed 4 students, injured 7 others. So I gave a quick wrap up of that, of the case. The shooter himself faces a life without the possibility of parole. A judge already determined that he is eligible for that, even though he was only 15 when he did this. He's going to be sentenced December 8th. He may not get that, but he is eligible for it. So he may spend the rest of his natural life in prison. Now, the parents are going to have separate trials. And what's the latest twist in this case happened is that the attorney for the mother, the prosecution wanted her sanctioned because of how she disclosed information about the shooter's mental health. To catch everyone up to speed, the parents, part of their defense is that they didn't ignore their son. They didn't know, they had no idea that he would ever carry out a mass school shooting. And so they asked the judge, can we have access to his mental health records, the same ones that a judge used to determine that he is eligible for life without parole? The judge said, okay, you can have these, but we're going to have a protective order. You cannot disclose anything that we give you in this, any mental health records you obtain about him has to be kept confidential. So in one filing, the defense attorney for the mother, Shannon Smith, when she got these boxes and boxes of information about the kid's mental health and interviews he had with psychiatrists in jail, at first glance, she looked at all this and thought, oh, I need more time. Now, their trial is set for January. She wasn't asking for an extension in the trial, but she said, can I have another 4 weeks to look over this material? Because lawyers have certain deadlines they have to meet before the case starts. And in asking for that length, she said, for example, I looked at this information and in one box, on a cursory review, we noticed that the psychiatrist said that Ethan told her that he never asked his parents to take him to a therapist. So that was written, that was a handwritten note of the psychiatrist. All this has been disclosed in court records at this point. But so the prosecution cries foul right away. They're like, wait a minute, you just disclosed that because you knew, they argue that she did this knowing the media would grab it and run with it, which we did. Mm-hmm. I mean, because it's a contradiction. The shooter has told psychiatrists two different things. One, I asked my parents for help and they never got it for me. And the other one is I never asked my parents for help. So the defense attorney argues, you know what? This is fair game. This issue's been out there for 2 years. I didn't give anything specific to what, the circumstances around which he said this, but it's fair for me to introduce this, to argue over it, and at most to argue that Ethan Crumbley, the shooter, is unreliable. So that's her defense, but she could get, she could go to jail for this. She could be held in contempt for violating a court order that said all information must be kept confidential. Her defense is like this, and this has been out there for 2 years.
Well, and it was in a filing too, right? You said it was in a filing for an extension. Yeah,
it was in a filing for an extension. So it wasn't like she filed and said, hey, look at what I just discovered. Yeah. But essentially the prosecution says that's exactly what you did.
She knew what she was doing, I have a feeling. But that being said, that's a really, don't they consider that a gray area?
It could be, it's definitely a gray area. What I found interesting that the judge did was that the judge didn't sanction her right off the bat. The judge didn't say, you know what, I'm going to hold you in contempt. The judge put this off until May. Okay. And said, listen, I'm going to order you to come in here after trial and explain why you shouldn't be held in contempt. Why you did this. Well, by then, the trial will be over. And
the prosecution might drop it by then too. This could just be a thing to make sure she doesn't do any more of this.
Right. So we'll see what happens. And, but it's, a lot of interesting stuff is coming out now. Psychological experts I've talked to tell me that it doesn't matter whether the kid asked his parents for help or not, whether he has whether he contradicts himself. A parent, it's their responsibility to get help for their kid. And they shouldn't have to wait for a 15-year-old to reach out to them and say, you know what, I'm not doing well. I need help. That it's a parent's responsibility to get that child help.
I hate being in a position because I don't like these parents at all. They're terrible parents. But being a bad parent that's not illegal. So I mean, the crux of it is they should have gotten him mental help. But if their defense is, we never would have thought he would have done this mass shooting. That kind of carries some weight? I mean, who would ever think that would happen? They bought him a gun. It's a gun community. The review of the school, a lot of the people that work for the school said, hey, I'm searching for bullets. We're a hunting community. We're a gun community.
Right. However, now the prosecution will argue they did know he was a danger to himself. They've pulled up old text messages or
himself.
instant messages between the parents saying, hey, where is Ethan? Why isn't he in school? I'm worried he's going to do something stupid. So they point to a lot of this to say they knew he might be problematic. But what's interesting is that up until the shooting, most people who encountered him were worried that he was suicidal, not homicidal. The counselor, when they kept him at school that day after he'd drawn that on his worksheet, has said, listen, I thought he was better off staying in school and not going home alone without his parents. Yeah. The parents also thought he was suicidal, not homicidal. So that's a key issue in this case as well.
Does them having their separate trials, I would assume that helps them, right?
It could help one, it could help the other, could hurt one more than the other. So the father is the one who bought him the gun. So
could they flip? I mean, there's no deal to be made, right? To have her flip against him, Jennifer?
Well, the defense lawyers have been arguing all along that's what the prosecution is trying to do. They're trying to create a rift between the parents and the parents who are always on page one. But legally now, new witnesses have come forward in Florida that are going to testify on behalf of one or the other, which makes it impossible. The other parent is going to have to cross-examine that witness. I mean, they've come to this point. They have to have separate cases because they will have to turn on one another at some point. It's inevitable.
Oh, wow. You're still there, Emma?
Yeah. I am. I read all of Teresa's stuff, so I knew all this, but...
Oh, well, the audience doesn't.
No, but, I know you love diving into these legal matters, so I thought I'd give you your opportunity to
it is an amazing case. I find them to be terrible people and really bad parents, but this seems like a really tough case to prove. I mean, what's the feel? And I don't know how much you're allowed to speculate, but what's the feel as to how this will play out?
I don't know. I've always people don't like reading the comment sections in our stories or the Facebook comments, but I know lawyers do. They read them because they want to, get the temperature out there. What is a prospective jury going to look like, feel like? And what you see is there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of emotion in this case. There are also people who think that this, pushes the limit. This goes too far and could set a dangerous precedent for parents. It's kind of all over the place. I've said from the beginning you may get an emotional verdict right off the bat that just says what this kid, this is awful and just convict, an emotional verdict because of the anger, or you're going to get a hung jury. You could have just one gun advocate on there who thinks, they didn't do anything wrong. Or you could have some parents on there that I think, I'd hate for this to be me. And yes, well, I don't like these parents. I don't think this amounts to involuntary manslaughter. However, the prosecution, they really do have arguments that we've never heard before, as they've argued over and over again. This case is like no other. No school shooting did the parents go out and buy this gun for the kid on Black Friday, 3 days before he did this. And then the mom sending the text message when he got caught researching bullets at school, and the son says, "Mom, are you mad?" And she says, "No, I'm not. Just make sure you don't get caught next time. LOL." All right. So you have behaviors we haven't seen before. You see us and these are facts. This isn't something that I'm just whittling off the top of my head here. But again, the law is the law. And I mean, I've seen juries follow the judge's instructions when they say, listen, you can't bring emotion into this. You can only decide this case based on the law and the instructions I give you. Time and time again, I've seen juries do it. And I'm always in awe of it. Will they be able to in this case? I mean, the jurors are coming from Oakland County.
That's a pretty big pool.
It is. It's still a big pool, and people don't pay attention to the news as much as we junkies think they do. Everyone's like, you got to be sleeping under a rock not to know about this case. A lot of people don't follow the news, So at most, I can see jurors getting up there during voir dire and saying, "Yeah, I heard about there was a shooting and some kids died," and that's all they know.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing that people don't understand is the voir dire process is where potential jurors get grilled by both sides and they have to talk about their experiences, their biases, things like that. You might find somebody who says, yeah, my brother got arrested for drunk driving and the cops roughed him up, so I don't trust police. And they're like, okay, we want you off of this because this is a criminal matter.
Right.
But you don't have to know nothing about the case. You can know a ton about the case. The issue is, do you promise not to do any investigation after you've been selected for the jury? And knowing what you know, can you approach both arguments and all the evidence with an open mind and make a fair and impartial decision? So this is not all about finding people who are completely disconnected from the world, because we don't want people like that, because they probably don't have the kind of life experiences that give them the perspective and the context to make a reasonable verdict. So you don't have to know nothing, but you have to come in there and you have to be willing to say, knowing what I know, I'm going to make my decision based on what I hear from this point forward and only based on what I've heard in this courtroom. So picking a jury is not as hard as people think, but the lawyers really screen these guys. And Oakland County is a large, diverse county. It's become like a purplish blue county, so you may say, well, they're going to be a little lighter on some of the, or a little harder on some of the gun stuff, but there are tons of hunters in Oakland County, and there are tons of people who want every gun taken and melted down and turned into, peace medallions. So, this is, and Oakland County is becoming a more diverse county too, so they should be able to get a good jury, but now they're going to need two juries unless one of the parents cuts a deal.
And that's going to be a tough part for the victims. They're going to have to go through this twice now. And, I'm surprised up to this point, we haven't seen any type of deal on the table, nothing being offered. These parents have already been in jail for 2 years. Their son's about to go to prison for the rest of his life. There are lots of schools of thought out there. But one thing I want your listeners to be well aware of, and if you haven't been on a jury before, the only thing you can base your decision on as a juror is whatever comes from the witness stand. It's not what the lawyers say in opening arguments or in closing. It's not what the judge says, when he interjects himself. It's the only thing you can base your verdict on is whatever comes directly from the witness stand, that testimony. Now, of course, people say things in court all the time, and you hear lawyers yelling, objection, and the judge will look at the jury and say, you cannot consider what that person just said, which is almost impossible. You can't unring that bell. I don't know how, jurors walk away and say, God, I heard that, and it really means something. And the judge says, you can't consider that. Whether they dare or not, it's tough. It's tough to do. The other interesting thing about this case that I want your listeners to know about is that there's two parts to this that the prosecution thinks that they have a case. And one is that the Crumbleys, more than anyone else, could have prevented the shooting had they just told the school that morning when they were summoned there, by the way, we just bought him a gun. Okay. And they didn't. Now, on the flip side of that, and this is news to me, there's a legal theory out there that says the parents have no legal duty to disclose that. It's the same as this. If you're in a subway station and you see someone about to jump in front of a train, if you don't do anything, you can't be criminally charged. So there's no legal duty on the general public to act. And that's something that they may struggle to get through, but a reasonable juror may say, you know what, they should have, why didn't they just disclose that? And the defense is going to say, because they didn't have to.
Or the defense could say, hey, why didn't the school search his bag? They could have stopped it. I mean, there's enough doubt.
Now we're getting to civil case. This is where this whole case sounds like a civil suit. You know, are they bad parents? They could have charged them with neglect, you know, not even child abuse. The feds have yet to step in and charge. I mean, it is unlawful. I mean, essentially, this was a straw buy. I mean, we you know, Ethan Crumbley stood up and said, my dad bought me this gun with my own money, by the way. The dad has never disputed buying the gun. But what they do dispute is that we didn't just leave this out. We kept it properly stored. We had it in a safe. It was locked in the room. The ammunition, everything to make the gun work was locked in different places.
Is that true? Is that a fact, or is that what the defense is saying?
That is what the defense is saying, and I'm not sure if the police have.
Have they been able to disprove that?
No, they haven't been able to disprove that.
I mean, if it's locked, I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about guns and gun locks to know, like, if you can tell when they're accessed.
Well, I believe the prosecution has come out and said that they initially, when this case started, they said that it was left, it was unsafe and unsecure. Well, that turned out not to be the case. Yeah. Now the argument is that, well, they gave him easy access to it. The combination to the lock was 0000.
Oh, Jesus.
But long story short, the kid found a way to get the gun, and immediately when that school shooting happened, as you remember, the dad, said, "Oh no, I think it's even." He raced home right away when he heard that there was a school shooting up there. He went home right away to look for the gun. So they had a hunch it was their kid. They're going to use all this against them, but to show that yes, you did know your kid was problematic. You knew he probably should not have had a gun. Again, I've had legal experts over and over again say this is a civil case, not a criminal one. But, the prosecutor is right. We have a series of all these strange facts here that haven't been presented in other cases, and they think they've got it. It
just seems like they could have been charged with a lot of other things, and maybe this was an emotional charge. I don't know. It's
well, I mean, at the end of the day, the argument is this: were it not for the Crumbleys, 4 children would be alive today.
Sure.
They bought him the gun. They knew he was troubled.
But they'll say if it wasn't for Ethan,
they could have disclosed this to the school.
Yeah.
All this is going to be they're going to go back and forth to it. I mean, is it emotion or is it, or will the law, allow this to go forward? Now, keep in mind, you've had numerous courts say that these charges were, that there was enough to bring the charges. I mean, they appealed all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court just decided not to hear it and let the lower court stand. Now, here's what will or could happen. If they do get convicted, this is going to get appealed. And maybe on appeal, the Supreme Court will listen to everything that came out and at the trial and say, you know what? We've seen it all now. Now we know what's out there. We've heard all the evidence, and we're going to have to throw this out. Or they're going to say, you know what? They were rightfully convicted. There is one interesting case that the Supreme Court has ruled on in this, and it involves a guy. There was a guy who came home drunk. He was drunk, and he goes to his roommate, and he said, I need your keys. Let me use your car. And he was hammered, and the roommate knew it. And the roommate gave him his keys. The guy goes out, drives, kills somebody. All right? So they charged the man who gave him the keys, with involuntary manslaughter. Like, you knew he was drunk. You gave him the keys to your car, and he went out and killed somebody. He was convicted. It got appealed all the way up to the Michigan Supreme Court, and the Michigan Supreme Court vacated it. They said that you have to be a part of it. You have to be a willing part of that act. So I know the defense is really leaning on that case, that it wasn't enough to justify involuntary manslaughter.
So Ethan gets.
So that's the case we have on the books on this.
Ethan gets sentenced, I think, the first week of December, pretty quick here, and then their trials are end of January they start.
January 23rd, but they're going to be separate now. I have a feeling new dates are going to get set. We haven't seen any yet, but I'm guessing one of them is going to go on January 23rd. If it's the wife or the husband who goes first, I don't know.
And but like you said, I keep going back to it too. The families have to keep going through this too, right? I mean, because the appeals and it's just, I don't know.
That was some of the most horrific stuff I sat through and listened to. It was called the Miller hearing, and that was a hearing to determine if the kid was eligible for life without parole. And to watch, the assistant principal get up there and talk about what she did that day And, she encountered him in the middle of the shooting. She went toward the bullets and she went up to him and said, Ethan, what are you doing? Do you need help? And he just looked at her and kept walking. And then this assistant principal falls down and is trying to save a child who's on the floor dying. And the child did die. I won't even get into the horrific details, but it was, I
can't imagine how that assistant principal is doing today. I mean,
I don't either, or the parents. Yeah. I just sat there and I kept looking at the parents, and I don't know how you can hold any of them back in court. I mean, it's so emotional. I mean, we're parents. I can't imagine looking a kid in the face who murdered my child.
But that's
calm.
That's that trial. Do we know what the parents feel about the Crumbley parents getting charged? I mean, obviously they probably want them to burn in hell, or would they rather this just goes away and they get? I don't know. Would they rather have a quick? I'm sure they would rather have a quick conclusion to this. Have they made comment on this trial?
No, they want everyone who played a role in this to pay. Yeah, I mean, whenever we talk to any of them, they want. I mean, they're angry at the school. I mean, these civil suits are out there. So when we talk about the parents, they get angry about the parents. But they get angry about the school too. Like they're looking at all the missteps, every single person who messed up along the way. That could have prevented this. And I'll tell you what I found many interesting things, but there was a Spanish teacher. She was the first one to raise red flags about Ethan Crumbley. She is the only one who has not been sued. And in reading text messages between other teachers and college and people, they thought she was a hypochondriac. They thought that she was, and I just look at that, and I have a daughter who's in social work, and she worked at a school, and there was a kid who came to school one day and made a threat, and nobody wanted to talk to him. And my daughter said, absolutely not. We have to pull him aside. And they told her, we think you're being a bit of a hypochondriac. And then she told them, my mom covered, the Oxford school shooting. And that's what they said about the Spanish teacher. And you know what? We can never be too safe with this stuff.
You're right. I mean, we're at that point now where you don't say that. You don't take risks. You err on the side of safety.
Right.
I mean, what's the harm in pulling somebody aside and talking to them?
No. I know. And again, that did happen. There are other teachers, the ones who did report him to the office, who did their job and said, thank God, they felt good about knowing what they did raise red flags. But then, I think, as you talked about earlier, what really comes out in Oxford is this was or is a gun community. People hunt. Yeah, people have guns for hobbies. So when you have a kid looking for bullets, it's not that big a deal to them. I'm not saying it isn't a big deal. I'm saying to them it was.
Hindsight.
But he did a lot. I mean, he was playing videos in class of shooters mowing people down. Oh, he was, I mean, he brought bullets to class and set them there. And for anybody, I think his own lawyer made the best argument I've seen so far, or the most interesting one. I shouldn't say best. That's giving my opinion. But she did note something when they said whether or not did he ask for help or didn't he. She said he absolutely did. On that morning, he wrote on his paper, help me.
Yeah.
Help me. I mean, it doesn't get any clearer than that. And he has since said, now whether he's telling the truth or not, we don't know. But he has since said that he was hoping he'd get caught that morning, that someone would stop him.
I don't know if I believe that, but.
I know. I'm just telling you.
No, I know. My opinion is I don't believe him, and I hope he burns in hell when he finally dies. Yeah. Seriously, I have no sympathy for him.
I know.
Even though he had two terrible parents, I've honestly no sympathy for them. But the legal argument is pretty hard.
Yeah.
Right, ML?
Well, what I'm wondering is, what are the odds that legal argument's going to be made by a lawyer who's also brought into court wearing a jumpsuit? I mean, how likely is it for this attorney to be locked up?
You're held in contempt when you violate a court order. I mean, that happens. Shannon has a clean record. I don't believe she's been reported to the Attorney Grievance Commission before. She doesn't, she has no history of misbehavior or of violating any code of ethics, or she's never been held in contempt before. I mean, what will happen? I don't know. But there is a group of defense attorneys who defend just these cases. I don't know if she'll use them or not, but I know that resource is out there. And And
But if she is locked away, it's not like she's going to be sentenced to something, right? She's not going to have her own criminal charges where she's going to have to select a jury and defend her.
Yeah, it's not a criminal. Yeah, it's 90 days. It's 90 days.
So would that put the case on hold for 90 days, or would she just come to court from jail like her clients?
No. The trial's going to happen first. That's what I thought was interesting.
See.
The judge said, I'm not going to make any decision on this. I want you to report to me in May and explain to me why you shouldn't be held in contempt. Well, the trial's set for January. So this judge wants to get this over with.
Okay. Well, it's getting the legal matter over with is something that they can do by going through the trial or resolving the case, but getting the whole thing over with, people in Oxford are going to be dealing with till the end of their days. And the Free Press will be covering every development, usually breaking news under the byline of Teresa Baldus, who's our guest, and who, when I get home today and don't feel well, I'm sure is going to have some hot soup and maybe a nice blankie for me. Rub my feet and you know what she's going to say? Don't cough on me. And
That's
quarantine.
Exactly it.
Yeah.
Go through the back door, go upstairs, put your mask on, and stay away from
Leave
us.
me alone.
Well, that's when you love somebody, you'll do anything for them, I guess. Now we're learning something about this.
Do you do that when she's sick?
What's that?
Do you do that when she's sick? Well, let me ask her.
No.
What's that?
He always asks me, what can I get you?
Okay.
He does always ask me, what can I get you? How can I help you? And it's usually, when you're sick, it's just like nothing, go away. But he asks, what can I get you?
Or she says a cabana boy. But, it's nice to be asked, I guess. That's the point.
Yes.
So,
he can't go to Scotland and get Jamie Fraser from Outlander for me. So
well, ask him next time he asks, make him do something.
Next time he asks, what can I get for you? That'll be the request. Jamie.
That's Outlander Tuesdays on FX. You can watch that. The new season starts soon. If you really are excited about seeing people raped in the 1700s, may I highly recommend Outlander.
All right.
No, everybody gets raped in that show.
I know. My wife watches it.
I've got friends who won't watch it because there are so many rape scenes and it's really troubling. But you know what? It happened. It's an ugly fact about.
Yeah, what was the Dragons? They did a lot of that stuff. Or was that the other show?
The Dragons are
is that the one
show.
with the
Dragons
Iron Throne?
Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Oh my God, ML.
When you're wondering whether you've kept a guest too long,
a little more clueless.
Outlander, then you know it. Hey man, I just caught up on the Americans, dude. So I'm way behind.
Only a decade late.
I am way behind.
I've got to go back to my job.
All
Goodbye.
right. Okay. Thank you.
Teresa Baldus, thanks for joining us. And, if I could get some of those little crackers with the soup, that would be fantastic.
Oyster on the way, right?
Oh,
yeah, right. So is the check. We got Al here, our intern Al, who is a high school student and has been going to high school probably since right about the time that this Oxford thing happened. And I want to know, Al, what it's like to be a high schooler these days. I mean, do you go to school worried that something crazy is going to happen? Are your parents hovering all over the place talking about, get under a desk, go through a window? Or is it just like high school's always been? You're worried about homework, buddies, meeting somebody to take to the dance, and
the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and all the other stuff, pimples, all that shit.
Well, the first day the Oxford shoot happened, when we came back, it was just full on lockdown from all the teachers. They kept on telling us all the same information. They made sure we knew about the lockdown procedures, and they made sure that we knew how to keep ourselves safe in the shootings. A lot of new safety measures have been installed in the high school, which is nice. We have these police buttons that you can press, and it calls the police. And we also have these door stops that cannot be opened from the outside unless you have a special tool that the police have. But the first week, kids, they just I think it was 200 threats the school got from a bunch of annoying, stupid kids that just thought it'd be funny to toy with the school after a horrible tragedy happened. It's still very scary to go to school nowadays.
Really? It hasn't dissipated in 2 years?
It's a little better, but still you hear stuff like this and it reinstates that fear. Just maybe a month ago at Macomb, there was a shooting that happened right near, like a block away. And it was full lockdown, and all my friends were texting, is everybody okay? Are we all good? It was very scary for everybody, and I just want this all to stop.
Yeah, everybody does. It's
I
not
just
what
wanna live a
school's
normal
supposed to
life.
be like, man.
Have you had to do the training where they come in and tell you what to do if there's the active shooter training?
Yeah, what do you mean by that? Like the lockdown drills where
Yeah.
like you got to get yeah they
Yeah,
make us
where they
do that.
say, what is it? Run, fight, hide, or
It's-
I can't remember what order it is, but I can't believe we have to remember. We had stop, drop, and roll, which is just basically when the Reds nuke us, if you haven't melted, just try and do a somersault. I don't think that would have worked, but I'm glad we didn't have to test it.
It's hide, run, fight now. Yeah, they make sure to really knock that in our heads so we're ready in case it does happen, because it does happen and it's scary.
I mean, I've seen the training, I've seen the video, and I've said it before on this show. I was in tears at the end of it because I can't imagine how traumatizing it is just to go through the training, to be a little kid and to think, or a fine young man such as yourself, to think, I'm going to high school and I have to worry about what to do if somebody comes to try and murder me here. I mean, now I was a smart ass, so I had to worry about what to do if somebody found me and tried to pound lumps on me. That's bad enough. But you tend to recover from a beating. Something like this.
Yeah, my 9-year-old had to do the training, and she doesn't understand. I mean, this is before she was 9. I think she was 7 when she did it. And it's like,
So you've been through COVID. You've been through remote learning.
Yeah.
Now you've got the hide, fight, run.
Yeah.
Or was it hide, run?
Hide, run, fight. You're supposed
Hide, run,
to
fight,
hide
okay.
first, then run, and then if it comes down to it, you got to beat their ass. So.
Yeah. I mean, is this something that's constantly on your mind, or is it just when there's something in news, you're like, oh shit, yeah, it looks like it's still happening?
Yeah, well, when it first happened, it was constantly on my mind for weeks, and I'm a very paranoid person, so that's maybe just
man.
me. But every single time we have a lockdown drill, or every single time something like this happens, it does pop back up in mine, and I'm guessing a lot of other kids' minds about you just can't be safe at school anymore. School, where kids learn, where our futures are headed. It's just, you can't be safe, and it's horrible.
Well, one of my students in my advanced reporting class at Michigan State is writing her semester-long investigation on what schools are doing to make themselves safer. And the other thing that people don't really think about is all this hardening schools and all that other stuff. It's really expensive, and there's a lot of money that could be spent on activities and educating kids. It's being spent to protect kids and staff because, the teachers are at risk as well. And I mean, I'm serious. When I was going to high school, my biggest concerns were math, which I never quite figured out, meeting a cool chick, sports, work after school, and the dance. And of course, not getting thumped for being a jackass. I don't know how you guys do it. This is none of those things was going to be my last day. My biggest fear was never that I was not going to go home.
It's kind of, you guys said you had like the Red Scare, right? Like it was kind of, it popped in.
I didn't. I'm not that old.
You're not, well,
you had the crimson and gray scare or scarlet and gray scare for a while, but that's over now.
like you're going to get nuked. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's the same thing, but like same mentality of, well, it actually happens.
I think it's way worse now because it happens.
It actually
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have to worry about fighting the Reds coming through campus and.
Yeah, no Red Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to yell Wolverines, which would be tough. But
Oh my God.
well, Al, I don't know how you do it. God bless you guys for everything you've been through. You seem to be a pretty well-balanced dude and somehow pulling together.
Just
Maybe-
remember, even though it happens, it is incredibly rare,
It is, yeah.
Yeah,
which is why you always hear, I never thought it would happen here.
yeah.
You always hear that because the odds are still very low, but it happened. It happened here.
I just hope that we don't become numb to it, but that for those of you
Sure.
who it's something that you have to deal with, that it helps make you stronger. Although this is really not the way that you want to improve characters by
Yeah.
being faced with the potential annihilation when you're in the middle of homeroom. But and locked from the inside. I love that idea, but what if the screwhead is in your class and he locks the door? I mean, what do you do then? It just seems like every solution.
Well, hopefully you'd see them
leaves
preparing
another.
before then, and you stop them.
Yeah, well, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
They're in the room.
Yeah, so you're going to run at a guy who's firing at you. I mean,
No, I just mean when most of these unfortunately happen, they are they stage somewhere else, either outside or in a bathroom. Yeah,
Yeah.
not in a homeroom.
Well, I think the solution that solves all the
they do
problems-
it where people don't see them.
right, but
You see it happening. Yeah,
I think the solution to all of this, because every one of these solutions leaves a gap, is
Always.
keep the weapons out of the school.
Definitely.
of course.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that if some guy was just squared up with the classroom and said, whoever steps forward, I'm going to kick their ass, they'd get dogpiled. Whereas somebody pulls out a knife or a gun, and you're like, I'm not going to be the first one in. So who's going to start this? And then by then it's all over but the crying. So I don't know, man. Good luck. And if you've got any suggestions, please share them, because more often than not, the solutions aren't coming from the old heads. It's coming from the
be
people
more
in
aware
the
of your
middle it.
surroundings and the people around you and what they're going through. Everyone's so focused on their fucking phone.
Yeah, although then
serious.
Then the flip
Trust me.
side is, there's weird Charlie over there. We got to call the cops on him, and all of a sudden Charlie's labeled as whatever, and he's just kind of a goofball. I mean, you want to identify the potential
Don't
threats
label him as a goofball
early.
then.
Well, I mean, but once you start saying like, I thought so and so was saying some weird shit in
That's
class,
why
and he
you-
gets pulled out.
That's
now
why
that-
you err on the side of safety, though.
Yeah. Well, I think
Be more empathetic.
I think it's going to be tough either way, but things. And I was going to say
There's no way to solve it.
I was going to say they're getting better, but I don't feel that. I feel like we're a
Well,
long
that's
way
fun.
from better. But
On that note,
yeah,
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
boy, usually we have to count on Shawn to bring the show down, but I think I just
well,
I
the
just-
topic isn't the great. I mean, it's a fascinating topic.
Well,
It's
and-
never going to go away. But
And the Crumbley case with the parents,
That's what I mean, yeah.
there was a case in Highland Park, Illinois, where the dad just pleaded guilty to a crime for getting his son a gun, but the son was an adult, and the son was on lists where he couldn't get a gun.
Yep.
So in this case,
that was the parade shooting.
yes,
Yeah.
the dad basically circumvented the system to help his son get a gun. So that seems like a
Yeah.
more clear-cut case than the Crumbley parents, but.
But fuck them too.
Yeah, well, the thing is, if this case goes to nothing, they still will have done a considerable amount of time. So that's a whole nother
True. Yeah, that's right.
wrinkle in
How long
that
have they been
case.
locked up? They've been locked up for damn near 2 years because it was 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they've been behind bars for quite a
Hard
long
to find
time.
sympathy. Yeah. Anyway, Geek of the Week.
Yeah. Well, before we get to Geek of the Week, let's.
Well, I was trying to keep them separate from.
Well, the one thing. So we're talking about threats to your future. Well, there
you
is
go,
a very real threat that we all face, not annihilation, but running out of money by the time you retire and not having a plan. If you're looking for somebody who can help you make that plan, Luke Nowacki and Pinnacle Wealth Strategies can at least take that one burden off of your mind.
That's right. So give Luke a call. Find out if you're on target to meet your goals. Get a free consultation. Luke Nowacki can be reached at 248-663-4748. That's 248-663-4748 for Luke Nowacki. He is the finance guy you want to talk to. Once again, to make sure you're on target to meet your goals.
And when you call Luke, he'll make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. member FINRA SIPC.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc.
All right, Geek of the Week.
Yes, sir. So this is too serious to be a Geek of the Week. So I'm going to just throw this out here because it's such an outrageous situation. I think we need to talk about it. But there is a guy named Craig Sumner Elliott. He's 68, and he was jogging with his two dogs and pushing a cart on September 28th when he came across a 40-year-old homeless man sleeping in the middle of the sidewalk. So what did he do? Did he say, "Sir, please step aside"? Excuse me while I step over you? Did he say, "Make way"? Did he say, "On your left, on your right," whatever? No, he shot him.
What?
And not only did he shoot him, he filmed it on his phone.
What?
Yes. What happened was he's jogging. He finds this guy asleep. He tried to wake this guy and said, hey, move out of the way, move out of the way. The guy starts yelling at him. So then he pulls out a gun, and after a shoe gets thrown at him, he ducks and shoots him 3 times. The guy died.
When did he start filming?
I think it was doesn't exactly say here, but certainly before he started shooting at him. And so he did have a licensed active concealed carry permit, so he was cool to carry, but certainly he was not in danger. And it seems like an extreme response when a homeless guy who really was asleep and you could have gone around. That's some pretty heavy stuff. So I'm going to call that flaming dick of the week, and that's still not giving it enough gravitas. But our geek of the week this is kind of a familiar story. It's a company that loses a legal judgment, and they are ordered to make a payment, and the payment is $23,500. So what do? They go to the bank and they get a bunch of coins.
Assholes.
And then they get the coins. They're stacked up in these nice little boxes and all that other stuff. So that's fairly reasonable. But then they dump them out of the boxes and they put them in these heavy ass containers, and then they go to deliver these 6,500 pounds worth of pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters to the company that had won the lawsuit against them. Well, when they get there, the company says, this is too heavy to go up on our freight elevator, so we can't accept it, so they send it back. So this company, and their name is, they're a Colorado welding company, JMF Enterprises. They're brought back to court, and the judge says, hey, listen, pal, this is clearly in bad faith, so we want you to take all these coins, which presumably they're then going to have to put back into sleeves and whatever, and take back to the bank. Oh, boy, that machine would be cranking. Plus, you play some juice on Coinstar, so that would cost them more money, and you're going to have to give them their payment in either a check or a money order or some more reasonable financial instrument.
At least singles, right? At least dollars.
Yeah, dollar. That's still kind of.
No, it's still ridiculous, but
so yes, they have to make payment by check, cashier's check, or some other way, as long as Fired Up, which is the company who won the lawsuit, as long as they're cool with it. So JMF Enterprises, for being jackasses, you're our Geek of the Week.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
So Shawn is not here to play us his favorite selection from Robert Bradley's Blackwater Surprise. So I'm taking.
He will never do it.
He's threatened. He's threatened to care, but so far that is an empty threat. So I'm taking the reins back, and because I just finished watching The Americans, the superlative series on FX about Russians who have been implanted in the U.S. to act as Americans, to be spies and try and turn the balance of the Cold War. It reminded me of one of my favorite new wave artists and one of the biggest new wave hits of the 1980s. Of course, that's Kim Wilde's Kids in America. And so here's Kim Wilde with a hit that wasn't that big in America, but did really well everywhere else.
Looking out a dirty old window, down below the cars in the city go rushing by. I sit here alone and I wonder why. Friday night and everyone's blue. I can feel the heat but it's soothing heading down. I search for the beat in this steady town. The young ones are going
Shawn joins us now because nothing would hurt him more than to miss an opportunity to piss on.
I'm laughing too because now his camera's up.
Shawn's upside. Shawn, I hope this is not an impertinent question, but who's having sex in your car today?
Is this microphone on? Oh, there he is.
No, and I turned it upside down so you could hear me a little bit better. If I righted it the normal way, the mic would have been blocked, and I didn't think that'd be good for the show because that's really all I care about is the show.
I was just gonna rag you for that.
You kind of remind me of Lloyd Bridges in Airplane. when he says, "I guess I picked the wrong day to stop sniffing airplane glue," seeing you upside down like that. But
yeah, as far as intercourse in the show in the car, maybe it goes on in the show when I'm not there. I don't know, but in the car, no.
Okay, good. Well,
unlike the last soup kitchen you drove around in California.
Yeah, that's. I think that's being optioned actually by FX. Shawn's Car. It's a reality show based on what happens in the back of rental cars outside of French dip restaurants.
By the way, that was apropos, right? Coming in, was that the Go-Go's I heard?
That was Kim Wilde, a also super successful female vocalist from the 1980s, The Kids in America, because I just finished watching the FX series, The Americans.
Which only ended 5.5 years ago, I think.
I'm catching up.
The music ended, 35 years ago. So there you go. So that's appropriate.
Now, that's not exactly true because Kim Wilde has inspired so many people. Not only have they covered Kids in America, but there are multiple bands over the last 40 years who have recorded songs called Kim Wilde that are tributes to Kim Wilde.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's become this iconic 80s songstress. Now, she didn't really write much of her own music until she'd kind of faded from the spotlight. Her dad, who Marty Wilde was somewhat of a star in the 50s and 60s in England, being one of the first guys to start doing American pop for an English audience, co-wrote it with her little brother Ricky Wilde.
Oh, really? So she doesn't even get any of the money for all the covers and...
Well, I would think her parents, it's all in the family, right? They get the publishing, but the producer who discovered her was actually listening to something that her brother Ricky Wilde was doing and heard her in the background and said, "Hey, I think she's pretty good. So let's hear her." Ricky runs home, writes Kids in America with his old man. They come back, they record it, and the producer, whose name was Mickey Most, signed her. Now, there's a Detroit connection to Mickey Most because he also produced, Shawn, you know who I'm talking about, Susie Quattro, the great Detroit singer who later played, Shawn?
Any relation to Johnny Most, the longtime Celtics broadcaster?
No, although...
Zero, what are you talking about?
There's no Detroit
By the way, Mark,
connection
I'm
either.
sorry I'm not there to shrink this portion of the show and all this lovely background.
Yeah, by saying that, you've just shrunk it. You've actually expanded. But Mickey Most produced Susie Quattro, who most people know as Leather Tuscadero, Fonzie's girlfriend from Happy Days.
Right.
I thought it was Pinky Tuscadero, no? Was it Leather?
Oh, no, it was Pinky
Pinky.
Tuscadero, but I think she had an evil sister, Leather Tuscadero. I think there was...
Oh, my God. Now you're too far into the weeds.
Like with the soap operas, with this like, oh, it's his cousin, but it's really... No, he's got a mustache, so he must be bad.
This is all fascinating, and I don't want you to rehash the show, but what did I miss? Did you guys have a guest?
We did. We had one of our best guests. We had Teresa
Thanks
Baldus.
for checking the prep.
Oh, you didn't really send the prep because you were not feeling well and you had to get to the pharmacy. And I hope, by the way, you're feeling better.
I was until you suggested that I had somehow been derelict in my duties to.
No, you weren't derelict. You were feeling well. It's okay.
And we did cover that fantastic day on Saturday, which was made even better by the fact that I got to see Shawn at a tailgate before the Michigan-Ohio State game.
I did ask where Mike was, right, Mark? I said, "Where's Mike? I don't see him around here."
And I told you what I said. I said he's probably still at Ford Field from last night.
Yeah, you're right. He pitched a tent in the parking lot, didn't he?
That's right, yeah.
At least I didn't pitch it in the back of your car.
And he stayed there, yeah.
Somewhere near that church, I would imagine.
Oh, jeez.
So you're covering
I'm up here in East Lansing, and they just hired a new football coach, and so maybe you won't have to endure any more 49-0 is like you saw. I think it was 49-0, right? Friday night at Ford Field.
No, it was only 42 not.
Okay, was it 42? Okay.
Already showing improvement.
Yeah, no, that's great. Mark, did you recover, by the way, from Saturday? Because that was about as good as it gets.
Yeah, you missed the whole story about how I hurt my knee and I have to wear a knee brace now for a few more days. That's a whole thing. But I'm still watching and reading everything I can about the game. Many days later, and I will be in Indianapolis, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll see you there. I actually had a friend, and I wrote about this. A friend I've seen once in 40 years, a high school friend who randomly loves Michigan. Mike, I'm sure, can relate to that. Is a Texan, no connection to the school, saw the winged helmet in the early 80s and has loved him ever since. And he came up to the game and just said it was the best adult sporting experience of his life. He could not believe it. What
did you make of you've been to multiple games for all sports, what did you make of the environment and how did it match up with other places you've been?
It was great. I mean, it was loud, and I was trying to explain to my friend Troy, whose experience with college football is in Texas or just in the South in general, where that's generally a little throatier, a little more festive, I would say, right? Especially in places like LSU and Alabama, even Florida and Georgia. But it was loud, Mark. I don't know that it's a little bit hard for me to tell because you're behind the glass.
Sure.
But I don't know that I've heard it quite that loud. It contained the noise in a way. Who knows?
The only other game, I think it was the loudest, especially during the interception at the very end that clinched it. Like that's probably the loudest I've ever heard that place. The only thing that might come close is Denard's throw against Roundtree the first night game. After he caught that in the end zone, because that was loud as shit. But that might be just me remembering it differently because it was the first night game, and But that was early in the year. Ohio State, Michigan, far different.
Maybe people are a little bit less inhibited right at night. I mean, that's always the stereotype, the knock against Michigan and the fans. I'm sure Mike would jump in on that, right? And I try to explain to my Texan friend that it's just the Michigan and the whole idea of the khakis and they sit on their hands. But he told me he stood almost the entire 4 hours or 3.5 hours.
Yeah, that was as rowdy of a crowd.
Because the seats are so tight.
Well, when it's cold too, that aluminum gets on your butt, and I'm sure that doesn't.
That's why you don't want to sit down. Yeah.
By the way, I don't want to bring the show down, but could we have a moment of silence for Richard Roundtree Shaft, who died last month? I know that's not the Roundtree you were referring to, Mark, but Richard Roundtree was outstanding.
Hey, and covering a new coach, everyone's always excited, right? Because it's it's a little bright spot and usually a bad year.
You got nothing for Shaft? That's it? No silence?
No, I mean, that was so long
ago.
No. Just talking about Shaft.
Yeah.
But,
shut your mouth.
Rest in peace, Mr. Roundtree.
A coach is never hired because they don't like him, right? I mean, you always like somebody, you always like something you purchase. You like somebody that you buy. But do you ever remember any press conference where people walked away and were like, I don't know about this guy? Because I can think of one in particular.
Mel Tucker's press conference a few years ago was interesting. He didn't have much to say. He kind of said the same 2 or 3 words over and over and over. And I was a little curious about how that was going to go. And then obviously he beat Michigan a couple of times out of the chute and found Kenneth Walker. But so you never know. What's yours?
Well, I think the Rod Marinelli was the one where after Rod was hired, everyone's like, oh boy, this is who they hired. This seems really.
You don't think they felt that way after Morningweg?
No, I think people were pumped up about Morningweg with his background. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he had the whole innovative. He came with the creative label, right? And it's going to be interesting to see what Justin Smith. I talked to Alan Haller, the athletic director up here at Michigan State for a bit, and he was pretty candid. He said, "Hey, the board more or less left me alone. I think that was important." He said they did a lot more research this time. They had more time for one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tucker was a panic hire.
They were getting worried late in the process as more jobs started to become open that they were going to lose him. He said it was really getting stressful the last couple of weeks because he'd become a kind of a candidate that other programs were interested in. But I just we'll see if that makes a difference. He also said, "Hey, this is my last football hire. He's either going to succeed, and that'll be that, or he's not, and I'll be gone." So, he was refreshingly candid about all of it and how the politics of the place kind of stayed out of the way and let them do their research. And
Shawn, did you get a chance to ask a question in the press conference?
Pardon me?
Did you get a chance to ask a question in the press conference?
No. I talked to him. I talked to the interested parties after and the split ups where it's a little more. We got more conversation.
Did you ask him if there's a new wave hit that he'd like to introduce people to, or if one of his favorite bands has a really good song that no one's aware of?
No, of course.
No, yeah. That I didn't quite think of that. I wished I would have, though.
Me too. I mean, this is Rule 7609, which is all about.
No, we're done with that. We've moved on.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Well, you can always send your new wave suggestions to ML Soul of Detroit at gmail.com or whatever you like from Robert Bradley's Blackwater Surprise.
I'm sorry I missed Teresa. I always love her appearances. I'm not so sorry I missed the Geek of the Week, but you know, that's just how it goes.
Well, you live with a lot of regret, and that's okay. We come to accept that and love you anyways. What was your impression of the new coach? You said you got a little one-on-one time with him?
No, with the AD, and I talked to D'Antonio for a quick second. Izzo was there, and Izzo talked about just the relief everyone feels. You know, Mark, you were talking about a new coach.
What did D'Antonio say before you get to that?
That he did a lot of homework himself, you know, because he's got a lot. He's been in the coaching. Spent his adult life doing that. So he talked about talking to all the folks that had worked with him, some of the former players, and that. So he helped with the research too. D'Antonio even talked to some media members out there because it's interesting. You don't think of media members necessarily as having that kind of relationship sometimes with coaches, but you can have a certain perspective, and I thought that was interesting that they actually wanted to talk to some folks that had covered Jonathan Smith out at Oregon State and get their perspective too.
I never thought of D'Antonio as someone who had much regard for the media, so that's very interesting.
Yeah, no, I thought that was interesting. Hal actually told me that part about the media. D'Antonio didn't, but no, he likes him. He likes the way he thinks about the game, and you know, he sounded similar to D'Antonio in the way they want to line up and the physicality. But the main thing really is that Jonathan Smith talked about the resources here and feels like they're nice, good resources here, but he really focused on the development. And that's sort of a nod to D'Antonio. That's how D'Antonio won, right? That's how you have to win that's how you won at Oregon State a little bit the last couple of years. That's how you have to win at Michigan State. You're not going to. Izzo said the same thing afterwards. He's like, look, you know, I get a 5-star guy every once in a while, but I'm not going to go fill up my recruiting coffers that way every year, and neither is Jonathan Smith.
That's so silly. That's so silly. That's how you win everywhere. Like, I mean, look at Ohio State and Michigan again, because I'm just going to always go back to that. Ohio State is loaded with talent. They get 5 stars all the time. You still have to coach them. You still have to teach them how to block and tackle and learn the plays.
You know, for sure. And that's one of the more, I know with Antonio, what's written about and talked about, but when you think back about that run he had and that record he had and the fact that he was finding NFL level guys, 2- and 3-star guys and develop, and that's what this guy's going to have to do. And that's what he did at Oregon State. And that's what they're hoping they can get back to. Mel Tucker came in and went to the portal and had an idea. He'd been at Alabama and Georgia on their staffs. And he had an idea he was going to be able to go compete on the recruiting trail with Michigan and Ohio State, especially Ohio State. And that's not realistic up here. So this guy's going to take a different approach. We'll see if he can.
Well, he's also a guy who came up the way a lot of those great D'Antonio players did, where
walk-on, right?
Yeah, I mean, D'Antonio didn't have a lot of walk-ons that turned into stars, but he was someone whose talent wasn't recognized and wasn't maybe fully developed. But by the time he left, he was a gunslinger for Oregon State. So I think he has some appreciation for the kind of guys you need to look for, and maybe can see in them what he has in himself, because Big Ten's only getting more competitive. The teams you're recruiting against are going to be that much more glamorous. So
what's his deal? Do you know what he's getting paid?
7 years, 7.25, something like that.
That's a big savings for us.
Wow. And how much do the players get?
Yeah, right. No, the Howler said it was about in the middle of the Big Ten. The contracts in the Big Ten were anywhere from 5 to 10 years. And so it's kind of in line with, you know, it's not Harbaugh money, it's not Mel Tucker money, but probably Ryan Day money, but that's just what, isn't that amazing that we're talking about $7 million a year and that's not the top?
Is there a big buyout with that too?
I don't know what they're going to release all the figures later. I'm not sure what the buyout is. They added Howler said that he wanted 6 years, but in the last couple of weeks, as more job openings became available, they got a little nervous, and so they added another year to sweeten it.
And did they say whether Ishbia and St. Andre are going to pay any portion of that 7 point whatever?
Yeah, I don't know now that he owns the Phoenix Suns.
And are the Spartan Dogs for life going to kick some money in? Because I know there's been a lot of concern about the NIL.
Well, he was hoping the podcast could help with this hour too. You know.
Well, Al's here to help us. We'll see how the Patreon goes. If we can start bringing some extra juice, maybe we can spread some around. But
well, our numbers apparently are going up. Or what you're saying, I attribute that to that your overall sexy appeal. You know what I mean? It just gets deeper by the week.
It's all ebullience. It's all ebullience, Shawn. You should know that.
It's ebullience, yeah. Well, you got the little cold in your voice today. That makes you sound even more alluring, if I may say so.
Shawn, why didn't you have a better seat at the press conference? Were you second row from the back? I'm looking at a picture of all the media there, and it looks.
I was. I sat
Why don't you sit closer?
The sun was coming in through the glass of that Gilbert Pavilion.
Yeah, you're right.
And you couldn't really see, so I sat back there to avoid the glare, actually, because I had my laptop out. I was trying to take some notes.
Oh, perfectly, Shawn. Yeah, no, you're right. That is the reason to sit back there. Let all the other idiots sit in the sun.
Could it be a situation where some of the photographers asked you to sit back there to avoid some glare that you may be casting?
No, I was back there with Jeff Seidel, our colleague. Chris Solari was there with me.
See him, yeah.
Reiner Saban was right there with me. John Neal from the Detroit News. So we were all kind of clustered right there. That's where you sit.
Wow. You know, they don't let the president and the vice president travel on the same plane, but you guys are all clustered together. What does that say about your value to the country?
Well, there's lots of other reporters groups scattered throughout in there. You know, Fred Heumann had his own section over there with George Blah and those guys.
As long as Graham Couch survives, I know the Republic will be all right.
Yeah, I did not see Graham today, so maybe he was somewhere else.
Damn, he's probably busting a big story. Better get cracking.
All right. Well, we miss you, bud.
Yeah, we look forward to having you back in studio.
I'm gonna go write this column, and then I'm gonna head to Hamtramck.
Oh.
Of all places, to a high school there to watch a basketball game, a freshman basketball game.
Well, obviously we're putting our best people on the best assignments, and then we're sending Shawn to.
No,
it's a family thing, right? Yeah.
My son makes his coaching debut today, and I'm gonna go to Hamtramck and watch him.
You should write a story on that. Why not? Right?
Maybe I will eventually at some point. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I will. Is it wrong that I'm more excited to go to a freshman game in Hamtramck than any of these football games I've been to lately, or going to the Big Ten title game this Saturday?
I mean, past Saturday is pretty sweet.
Pardon me?
I'm going to miss my daughter in a parade on Saturday to go to the Big Ten championship.
To go watch a foregone conclusion. Oh, that's nice.
She said it was okay. She said, I quote her, "There'll be more." I was like, okay, cool.
Well, my son said the same thing. He said, "Don't worry about it if you can't get there." But no, it's his first one. I'm going to do my best.
He's older. He'll remember. 9-year-olds don't remember anything.
That's true. Well, I'm glad you're able to get through the show, Mike.
What a bad parent.
Thanks for having me on.
Shawn, it's always nice to have you hanging around, even if it's by your ankles. I wish we had our Patreon going, because if you were watching this at home, seeing Shawn upside down is different.
What's funny is that both you guys are upside down and I'm right side up in my view here. But so it's been
spoken like the true narcissist that you are. It's the rest of the world that's upside down.
You guys are like Kiefer Sutherland and whoever else the hot model was in the Lost Boys. Hanging up
Jason Patrick.
Vampires hanging up in your cave.
Yeah, all I remember from that is the oddly oiled up muscle man playing saxophone, but he really does play that saxophone. That's a story for another time.
Jason
Patrick. No, when they're at the big party and they're playing that "Can You Feel the Heat" tune, and the guy with the long ponytail, and he looks like this gorilla playing saxophone. But that's who he is. That guy is actually a fascinating story. He was an addict.
My God. It's funny how back in those days the sax was everything. Clinton went on to Arsenio, didn't even play the sax.
Mm-hmm.
The whole sax thing back in that era is funny. Didn't Rob Lowe play the sax in a movie at one point?
No, I think he got caught in a Saks video with a couple of hairdressers in Georgia, but that's a whole different story. Shawn, we'll see you back here next week.
I ran into a friend of the show, Dan Wetzel.
Oh, you did?
At the Michigan Ohio State game, and he came up and he was like, "Man, that was." He was just talking about how much fun he had coming on and how much fun the show was, and he said he wanted to. He said, "Anytime you want me to come back." So
good. He's a fun guy.
I wanted to pass that along.
We'll bring him back, and we'll get some gravity boots for you so we can recreate this experience. I think when all the blood rushes to Shawn's head when he's upside down like this, he just comes with a lot more energy. I think
he looks like he's got more hair too, because you can see it hanging down a little bit.
Oh yeah. That's nice. Not much more hair.
If you had the Flowbee, you could give yourself a free haircut cheap.
You're not. Of course you don't, because you're not really upside down. You're just upside down to us.
I know. All right, my brother. All right,
be well.
All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. Look forward to seeing you in the studio next week.
Maybe I'll see you Saturday.
Yeah. Holler at. What time are you getting in?
Late, because I got to do another kid thing beforehand. See, so I'm not that bad of a parent.
No, you're not. So you driving or flying?
Driving.
Okay.
All right.
Well, maybe I'll see you Sunday.
Hey, we certainly can't settle this off the air.
No, we can't. All right.
All right. Bye, Shawn.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
Coming to you live in the field, Shawn Windsor, once again redefining the medium.
Broadcasting in general.
With his upside down take on the world, which today literally is but no, actually we're all upside down.
I know.
Not Shawn. So this is the portion of the show where we thank our donors. And we're out. That was it. No donors this week, but we do have a little update from intern Al about our Patreon. Al, you've been doing some research and looking at Patreon. What are we thinking about? What sort of levels are we looking at, and what sort of incentives, what sort of bonuses will we have for people who open their hearts and their wallets? Just a crack, just a skosh for those of us who are toiling away at basically a pro bono basis.
So I'm thinking a 5, 10, 15, 20, 50, 100, and then maybe 500?
Oh my God. What are we going to have to do for that?
You get free access to Shawn's car. That's right. He will supervise the orgy.
We're looking at some maybe a behind the scenes tour for some of the more expensive members. Mention at the end of the show if you also are willing to pay more. Ad-free access. That's nice.
Very nice. And that would be at a very entry-level point, right? We're thinking $5 a month?
$5 for entry level for free ads, or ad-free.
Now, where does the Shawn prepares a meal for everybody come in? Is that at the $500 or the $1,000 level, or is that at the
do we have
15?
Waivers?
I'm thinking 100. I think that's a good 150 maybe.
Okay.
Is that a little bit too low? You want me to go higher?
We have to see what Shawn's going to prepare. I don't want to get $100 and then he ends up making like filet mignon.
No,
we also don't want to give people ramen either.
Yeah, we'll make them do cheap hamburgers. How about that?
Oh man, that would break his heart.
I don't do anything cheap.
Yeah, you gotta prepare. You gotta get the Wagyu beef. Or what was the beef that we used to talk about from the butchery that had the?
Was it Wagyu?
There's something that had the striping, the ribbing, whatever the hell it was. But it was something from California. Anyways,
I'll eat it.
Well, a happy Thanksgiving, by the way, to Dave Hubbard, who is preparing his next venture out there in the culinary world. So Al and I and Mark are going to work on this Patreon after the show. So hopefully before the end of the year, we will have an opportunity for you to support us and also to get some cool stuff out of it, because we if we're going to make this value added, we got to give you more. So more on that. So Al, great work. Feedback is very brief this week. Emma writes in and says, in a message entitled simply, Harbaugh.
Uh-oh.
How can people hate this guy? Hope Harbaugh stays in A2 for 10 more years. He is 100% right about all the mostly grifter coaches being obscenely overpaid. Now, of course, he was obscenely overpaid when he started.
Yeah, but he admitted it.
That's true. The revenue should be going to the student athletes and maybe financial aid for poor and middle-class non-athlete students. I like that second part. Suspension over. Jim Harbaugh renews call for revenue sharing in college sports is the article that Emma links to. So, Emma, thank you for writing to us. You can all send us your thoughts, which we're happy to share, at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. That's also where you can contact us with your suggestions for room 7609. And if you have any suggestions for how we do this Patreon model, if there's things that you're willing to pay for, things that would make it worth your time and money, please let us know before we get this thing going. Time is running short, unlike the show, which is running long. So please write us. We always love to hear from you. And also rate the show, share the show, and whatever else you're doing, let us know how we're doing.
Listening's enough.
Yeah, listening is plenty. That's a good thing. So, Mark, I think that probably does it. Al, is this your last week with us here in studio, or might we be able to drag you out when you're not in class?
Maybe. I mean, if I'm not in class, you can drag me out again, I'm sure. But maybe last week, maybe not. Who knows?
Okay, so
like having you around, man.
When he's not running, fighting, or hiding.
Oh, jeez.
Did I get that right again? What is it? Run,
run, fight.
Hide, run, fight.
No, I actually said it wrong. It's run, hide, fight.
Run.
Oh.
Run,
really?
hide, fight. Okay.
Yeah, because you're like running first, then you got to hide. Because if you can get out of there, then you want to get the hell out of there. So.
Okay, I like that idea. Okay, well, we are going to run. We're never going to hide, but we'll fight occasionally, and that's what makes this show worth listening to, some people tell us. So thanks for spending some time with us on this Tuesday. Remember, our merchandise store closes tomorrow. That's Wednesday, November 29th at 8 p.m., Please get your orders in. This is high-quality gear. I've been wearing it and loving it and looking like $1,000,000, which tells you how good it is, because to make me look like more than $5, it's got to be pretty sweet. And that is a limited-time offer, and we will get you this stuff in time for the holidays. Sizing is true to fit, by the way. So if you're an XL, you can order an XL. If you're a small, you're probably not listening to this show. But that's okay. We are adult content. But not the nasty kind, like Shawn has in his car. But that's it. Until next week, Mark, I hope you're feeling better. Al, stay in school. Stay off that. Stay off that rock and roll and those iPods and bath salts and whatever else you kids are doing these days. Bath salts is over, right? Nobody's doing bath salts anymore? No. Okay. Great. The odds of anybody getting their face chewed off are very low. And that's a positive note to end it on. So until next week, we turn to our friend Cyrus to take us out.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
It is on the air every Tuesday at this time. All characters are completely fictional and bear no relation to any person living or dead. Don't miss ML next Thursday when the kindly old podcaster turns to the Tea Leaf murder case.